You're watching That Lovell-Boland Life.
And today we're talking all the things we wish we knew before we moved to Singapore.
Welcome back to the channel. If you're new around here, my name is Sam and this is my wife Rianne.
Now we've been living in Singapore for about 5 years now, and before that we were living in Malaysia for 2.
Now of course, moving from KL to Singapore, we were told plenty of things about what life would be like here.
Yeah, a lot of people saying that the food wasn't going to be as good, but let's just skip past that. We've actually learned a lot of things about living in Singapore along the way.
So in this video, we wanted to lay down the 5 things that we wish we knew about Singapore before we moved.
Before we get into it, please do give this video a big thumbs up. It just helps others find our small channel, and please do consider subscribing if you haven't already. Right, let's get into it.
First on our list is all about taxes. Now, one of the great things about working here in Singapore is the low rate of income tax.
Absolutely. We were working in Malaysia where we were paying about 25% tax, and then even in the UK about 30%, and that was right out of university. So that's definitely quite high in comparison to Singapore.
Yeah, but taxes, it's not all about income tax. One thing that I really learned being here in Singapore is I've started investing, and one of the best things about investing here is that you do not pay capital gains tax, which means if you make profit on a stock, if you make profit on a trade, it's not taxable. It may be in the future, but right now here in 2022, it is not, and that is a great thing.
Number 2 on the list is work culture. So of course the reason we moved to Singapore in the first place is because of Sam's job. And we did notice a few slight differences when working here in comparison to, say, the UK. I'd say they're very Singapore is quite a strict place, and it does seem to have very strict structures in place. And I think as an employee, you do have to learn that your boss definitely is top of the hierarchy, and you kind of have to approach that with a lot of respect. I guess there's a lot of Asian face, you don't want to sort of break that.
Number 3 is all about personal questions. Now, we did say this was all about things that we wish we knew before we moved to Singapore, but I have to say, when we moved to Malaysia, that first week, we were asked, are you two a couple? Which I think when we moved to Malaysia, because we were working together, we were trying to keep it secret. We were asked how much we were paying in our rent. We were asked what our salary was. So I think, personal questions you do get a lot in this region.
Yeah, I think it's a culture thing as well, because I think these sort of questions aren't so off topic, whereas in the UK or maybe in other Western countries would just be a big no-no. Number 4 on the list is Kiasuism. So one of the first things we really noticed when we moved to Singapore is just little things that people's behavior, I would say. So to give you an example, when you're coming out of the MRT, you would have a lot of people rushing to get in. And I think we've lived in many big cities, London being one of them, where people they just automatically know you just wait until people get off, so it's easier for you to get in. And another thing is also when you're on the bus, when people sit on the aisle seat, and then when you're trying to get through, they don't just automatically shift over. They expect you to sort of climb over them. And that was something I was quite shocked, because I guess from a Westerner's point of view, that would come across as a little uncourteous. And so that was something that we realized. But I think having lived here for 5 years, everyone has this sort of kiasu, don't want to be left behind. And I guess it makes sense from Singapore's history. It was this tiny island with no natural resources. People really had to have that competitive spirit. So I kind of get it, but it is a little frustrating in a way.
Yeah, there have been lots of public campaigns from the government to make sure people are more courteous. There was 1979, the Courteous Campaign, which was started by Lee Kuan Yew. And it's really interesting. We mentioned Phua Chu Kang before. He is involved in a lot of these government adverts. There's a really funny one that I saw about MRT, about waiting for people to get off, going down into the cars so you're not crowding around the doors. It's really interesting, and I think it's a really interesting part of Singapore's history. You do have the Kiasuism about getting ahead, but sometimes maybe it goes a little bit too far. and that's where the government campaigns come in.
And I think we just have to say, don't take it personally. It's not exactly against you or anything like that. It's literally just sort of ingrained in Singapore's identity in a way. And I think that that's as something that we've learned along the way as expats.
Yeah, in the DNA, as you said, and that's probably why Singapore is way ahead of a lot of other nations, because they have got that inner spirit.
Absolutely.
Number 5 on the list is all about making plans. Now, being spontaneous, I feel, is a very hard thing to do in Singapore. I remember when we moved here pre-COVID, we would, on a Friday, we'd be like, what can we do at the weekend? What can we do? A lot of things were booked up. And I think that is the same for when you have people over. If you don't ask people early enough, sometimes a month, 6 weeks in advance, they have already booked their schedule.
I think
so they say.
Yeah, and the annoying thing is when, like Sam said, we would try and book a restaurant or whatever, and you try and rock up and they'll be like, oh, do you have a reservation? And you're like, no. And they're like, oh, sorry, everything is booked up. And even when you're trying to be, smart and do make a reservation, maybe on the Thursday evening, again, everything is booked up.
Yeah, all the tables inside are booked up, so you have to go outside, which is not pleasant for me.
For you who, he's still not accustomed to the heat. But yeah, it's something that's quite shocking, because I guess when we lived in Malaysia, we lived in UK, we just see how,
if we had a party in Malaysia, and this is another thing that we were going to add to the list as well. If we had a party in Malaysia, people would come from Klang Valley to come to our place, like in Monkiara, which is about an hour drive.
Petaling Jaya, people would come. This so far attitude is something that we've definitely experienced in Singapore. When we first moved, we lived in Yishun, everyone would reply with, oh my gosh, so far. And then I guess we've been going in our Heartland series, we've been going to like Pongo and all these sort of places, and people are like, oh my god, so far. But actually, for us, having come from a big country like the UK, which actually in comparison to say other countries like America isn't that big, everyone says things like so far, but Singapore is a small country and it has great public transport, so it is easy to get around.
Yeah, and after 5 years, you can tell that we really like it here. But they were our 5 things that we really wish we knew before we moved to Singapore, but it hasn't put us off. We are still here and we're still loving it.
Really hope you enjoyed, and do let us know anything that, in the comments that you've learnt living in Singapore. And thank you so much for watching. We will catch you on the next one.